Thank you very much, sir, the chairperson, and I'm really thankful to the RSSDI for inviting me to be a part of this August gathering, especially the whole team of Dr. Bansi Sabu, and they have worked, and I'm really seeing the content, and they are the really very important and lessons we have to learn from the, I think I have been listening to them. So with this, today my topic is about the novel approach to PPG with repaglinide. As we know that about the diabetes, about the scenario, and what about the postprandial guidelines and current available therapy, that is the flow of event. And we know that today we have a 8.9% prevalence of a diabetes, about 77 million, and this is going to be projected to be the almost around 135 or something in 2030. And there has been a really definitely there has been an increase in the incidence of diabetes in India. And as we know, if we talk about the Indian population, we have a early progression with the multiple comorbidities and macro and microvascular complications that we have very early in Indian patients. If we compare the Western, in India, we do have a higher incidence of the complications as compared to the other West, and especially it's the younger age group, it's the productive population which is affected. That's another matter of concern and when we talk about the complications part. As we know that glycemic pentate, that there are the 5 postprandial blood glucose, HbA1c, fasting plasma glucose, and then hypoglycemia and glycemic variability. I think these are all the 5 important components are there, which are responsible for the postprandial exertions, for the hypoglycemia and the glycemic variability. I think these are the 3 most important things today, and which are affecting the regarding about the outcome of these diabetic patients. We know about this, everybody knows about that. The first phase insulin secretion begins within 2 minutes of food ingestion and continues for 10 to 15 minutes, while the second phase insulin secretion is sustained until normoglycemia is restored. So that's a normal phenomena. But when we see about the postprandial hypoglycemia, especially in our Indian population, patients are almost for more than 12 hours, they are already in the postprandial phase. And then as you can see, right from the breakfast till midnight, they are already in the stage of a hyperglycemia, or the persistently high blood sugar levels are there. So our main aim is that we have to attain the A1C below 7%, but it's difficult because we also know, and from all those DCCT and UKPDS is demonstrated, every 1% reduction in A1C can reduce significantly complications. And it is also seen that management of a postprandial blood glucose can be more troublesome than the fasting plasma glucose. And the postprandial hyperglycemia has been proven to be independently contributing to diabetes complications. About the study which was there, and this is it has shown that study, Indian diabetes consume diet rich in carbohydrates. We are, as compared to the West, we are consuming a more carbohydrate, and this constitutes about 64% of a total energy from a diet. Similar findings across all zones in India. It's not that the North is more or South, but I think comparatively maybe a little difference. But overall, all the zones are having a diet which is having a higher percentage of a carbohydrate. And postprandial glycemia of 62.5% diabetic population were above the target of 180. So that means these are the people who are always above that TIR, that means target in range. And we see that as the recommendations are that more than 70% time they should be in the range. But what we see that in our population, this is not achieved and not seen. The real-world evidence of glycemic control among the patients with type 2 diabetes mellitus in India, there is a TIDE study, and according to this study, Indian population with type 2 diabetes has a burden of more than 76.6% and of a poor glycemic control. Among these patients, 62% patients had a HbA1c between 7 to 8%, and 6% had it between 8 to 10%, and around 4.5% had HbA1c of 10%. So if we talk, majority of these our patients were not having a controlled blood sugar levels as per the guideline, and overall 42.4% of patients had an uncontrolled fasting plasma blood sugar, as well as the 62% patient had an uncontrolled PPG. So this study highlights the need for early implementation of a optimum diabetes control, and that is how we have to do all this thing. And then goes to the what we can do. Is PPG is harmful? It should be addressed. It is now very well stressed, and it is now seen that PPG definitely is harmful. If we talk about about the cardiac problem, persistently high postprandial blood sugar levels and a glycemic variability is responsible for endothelial as well as the cardiac morbidity. So therefore, increased risk of retinopathy, increased carotid interval thickness, decreased myocardial blood volume, blood flow, impaired cognitive functions, elderly, postprandial hyperglycemia causes oxidative stress, inflammation, and then there is the picture which clearly shows that postprandial hyperglycemia, overload mitochondrial metabolism, autooxidation, early or reversible glycation, and then all those parameters which are there, inflammatory markers, and this all leads to the oxidative stress and a damage to the endothelium. About the glycemic variability, that's nowadays much talk about the topic, and here we always know that glycemic variability is one responsible factor which is responsible for the cardiac morbidity, because much hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia at these levels can cause acute glucose fluctuation from peak to nadir. This leads to the chronic hyperglycemia, glycemic variability, excess of glycation, activation of oxidative stress, and this leads to the cardiovascular diabetic complication. So there is a typical picture which is shown that the cardiovascular events are when the endothelial dysfunctions are there, and this is mainly because of a high blood sugar levels, which leads to and especially the glucose spikes, which leads to the oxidative stress. This is a postprandial hyperglycemia associated with the cardiovascular mortality. This is again very well studied, which shows clearly that there is a postprandial hyperglycemia and mortality and cardiovascular disease. They are associated. More hyperglycemia leads to the more cardiac problems. There was a study which is the morbidity and mortality related to the post-challenge and postprandial hyperglycemia. I think all of you are aware that these are the different studies, and the key findings has been that the increased risk of a CVD mortality with a higher PPG, 2-hour blood glucose levels and spikes were strongly associated with the CMT and then PPG or HbA1c, PPHG, but not the fasting glucose significantly risk factor for MI and mortality reduction of a postprandial hyperglycemia. So that means out of all these studies have clearly pointed out that postprandial hyperglycemia or a glucose excursions variability leads to the increased cardiovascular morbidity. The main pathological mechanism is there: endothelial dysfunction, oxidative stress, this is just a repetition, hypertension, inflammation, prothrombotic state, arterial wall penetration by the lipoproteins. And again, I think this was a Dr. Vishwanath was mentioning about that, Vijay Vishwanath was saying about the Danish registry, and that is they have shown definitely the cardiovascular benefits with the repaglinide. And this was clearly shows that in these large number of patients were there, which shows the repaglinide associated with a lower cardiovascular risk than other insulin secretory groups. The value of controlling postprandial, again, there are different type of the recommendations. And I think the IDF says the 160, American College of Endocrinology says 140, and the American Diabetes Association 180, European Association 135, and our RSSDI India says that it has to be less than 160, and this should be measured 1 or 2 hours after meal. Self-monitoring of blood glucose should be considered for postprandial blood glucose monitoring. I think that's a very important factor, because the people should be encouraged to do the self-monitoring, and that is the way. But nowadays, of course, when we talk about the glycemic variability, we do have a CGM, which definitely, and different type of the CGM are there, which can definitely show that over the period, how much were the blood sugar levels, and accordingly, because this variability definitely disturbs the quality of life. So that's why it is important that we should do a regular monitoring. Here in this slide, the cardiovascular disease and diabetes beyond glucose, and these are the different type of the studies which have shown that if we have controlled the blood sugar, definitely the incidence of all the complications becomes. And I think nowadays, the newer information with the newer molecules has clearly shown the benefits, and this is beyond hyperglycemia, and especially they have seen that those people who were not even having a diabetes, they were also benefited. So these are the controlling the blood sugar levels definitely have a benefit, and especially the PPG. Coming to our topic about the maglitides and its safety, we know that maglitides have a similar action to sulfonylureas, but are thermologically distinct, and they bind to different receptors on pancreatic ATP channels. Currently available maglitides include rapaglinide, natiglinide. I think we have been using a rapaglinide. I have been using, and I think all of us are using for a long time. A Danish nationwide registry-based observational analysis shows that mortality and cardiovascular risks associated with the use of rapaglinide and gliclazide was similar to metformin. So maglitinides are associated with less hypoglycemia, weight gain compared with the sulfonylurea. So this is what we need in our patients when we treat our patients. These are the different recommendations. As we know that ADA recommends this endothelial function is neglected because it's a PPG which is responsible. And all different, they have this thing measuring PPG 1 to 2 after start of a meal using targets. Regarding this breaking up prolonged sedentary time may also be encouraged. So monitoring dietary carbohydrates are key for improving the postprandial hyperglycemia. When IDF recommendations are also there. So these are the two, which are I think all the organizations, they stress the need to control the postprandial hyperglycemia. And definitely there are several classes of pharmacological agents, alpha-glucosase inhibitors, linides, short-acting sulfonylureas, insulin. There are rapid-acting human or analogs. In addition, nowadays, there are definitely benefits with these drugs. And then when we talk about the PPG in people with diabetes, GLP-1 analog, as well as the DPP-4 inhibitors are there. IDF again recommends the same thing. And again, RSSDI, again, there's the same, almost same. Everybody stresses that you use any combination of drug or a newer molecules, but main aim should be that you should bring down the postprandial hyperglycemia to less than 160, and combination therapy of AGI with other agents may be considered for a better control of PPG. And I think this is what is we have been seeing in our practice also, that this combination of AGI and with the rapaglinide has shown a clear benefits, especially when we talk about the postprandial hyperglycemia. SMBG should be considered because it is currently the most practical method for the method for the monitoring. Last 1 or 2 slides. Is the treatment of a postprandial hyperglycemia beneficial? I think now there are so many studies are there, so many this thing, and evidence-based medicine, and which shows clearly that if we implement treatment strategies to lower the postprandial blood sugar levels in people with postprandial hyperglycemia, definitely there is a decrease in the cardiovascular mortality. Definitely there is a quality of life improves and a better management in our patients. Postprandial hyperglycemia, this is a drug targeting postprandial are essential to control. Again, the same thing, repetition. that alpha glucose, AGI, DPP-4 inhibitors, GLP-1 derivatives, metformin, sulfonylurea, and glinides. I think the combination of glinides and AGI are wonderful drugs which reduces the postprandial hypoglycemia, and this has been proved by many studies, including the Danish study, which has shown the benefits. So, friends, repaglinide has a place in the treatment, managing the hyperglycemia in patients with type 2 diabetes during the earliest stages of the disease, has a more marked impact on CV outcomes. Repaglinide stores first phase insulin secretion, potential add-on drug after metformin monotherapy. The proportion of patients with primary diabetic nephropathy or with comorbid diabetes and a chronic kidney disease who require dialysis is increasing. Repaglinide is the choice of drug in CKD patients. And the high prevalence of CVD in patients with type 2 diabetes mean that establishing the cardiovascular safety profile of a anti-hyperglycemic agents is an important factor in their use. So repaglinide is the choice of drug in CVD patients. And I think the last presentation, the virtual idea presentation, there was an abstract which was submitted and which has clearly shown that the first study to assess the repaglinide voglibose in uncontrolled type 2 diabetes and shows the benefits on PPHG, high response rate for PPGHG control with combination use as an add-on therapy, and a complementary action lifestyle modification strategies for uncontrolled postprandial hyperglycemia. So I think the friends, we have now, there is a drug combination which can take care of the postprandial hyperglycemia, which is the main concern for all the treating diabetologists, endocrinologists, and the physician, that how to overcome this and how to prevent the cardiovascular mortality. Thank you very much for listening patiently.